Hey, howdy, hey. Hope you're having a decent Wednesday evening, Thursday morning. So, tonight we're going to be doing a bit more modeling here. I've been thinking about this piece, because this piece was causing me a lot of problems last time, and I completely forgot about an old strategy I did. And I'm going to be using it on this piece. It's going to be goofy because this piece will suddenly become super easy to make. That's the problem of when you get older. This stuff starts to disappear from your memory banks, and you forget some basic strategies that you used to utilize. I gotta remember to get rid of stream elements. I've heard some pretty bad things about stream elements over the last couple of months. I'm glad I don't use it anymore, even though it's technically there. Stay much second. There we go. I got a couple of things I want to bring up, and I want to continue on this idea that I was discussing last Saturday, and that's the concept of madness. But we're not going to touch that just yet, like normal. We're going to wait a little bit. Kind of curious if people are I'm kind of curious how many people actually find interest in Lego animations. I know that the numbers were far higher back when it was still a novel idea. It's no longer such a novel concept, and that is indeed a shame. I like to think that Legos are kind of a timeless sort of thing, but in reality, I realize that's kind of wishful thinking. It's one of the reasons why the Lego animations are still going to be happening, but that they're going to transition into something else entirely. Lego is how to get kind of the start. After that, we'll be diving into some new things that are going to be, in my opinion, even better. This is the foundations of Castercraft. Foundations of plastic. No, not technically. This is like a false foundation. There's other stuff that's going on that will kind of nullify a lot of kind of what I've been focusing on, I would dare say. And when they actually come out, it will make more sense. So here's the strategy that I'm going with. It's utilizing the two types of bevels. And this technique has worked out in the past. I'm hoping that works this time around too, but we will find out. Yeah, another edge loop there to that bevel. So let's start off by getting rid of the crease. That way I know which parts are the troublesome parts. All right, good. Good. We'll dress, let's see here. Grab up to here. And grab this part too. Now, one of the neat things of the Castercraft lineup is that we're going to territory that is going to be like very original content. A lot of upstarts will focus on things that are kind of knockoffs of other products. I really don't want to go that route. There will be some of that, but most of it's all original content. And but it's not like traditional. It's not like what we typically know of as content. This is kind of more an old-fashioned form of content. It's designed with a purpose rather than to be a dribble. So when people watch it, it's supposed to be watch it or read it. It's supposed to be sobering. It's supposed to kind of shell shock you in some ways. And we will see if it is successful. But no guarantee. I know that much. Which is important because a lot of people in our culture just assume that things are naturally going to work out. In fact, I would dare say most creators just naturally assume they're going to be successful. There was a guy that I used to have conversations with, and he had an idea. He was all gung-ho on a project, and he finally got his wish one day. And he had someone substantial look at it and promptly found out the hard way that he was not good. I realized that could be me. I do realize that. That's a problematic part. I wonder if that was causing me problems in the past. Alright, so now, bevel that. Add in another edge loop. And bingo. Greetings there, Forgiven. How you doing? I saw some of your videos on Facebook. Nicely done, sir. Do I really have to add another edge loop in here? Yeah, I need to do that. Because I have to keep that subdivision item there. There we go. That's much better. Can't talk too much. Understand. Well, thanks for stopping by all the same. So let me I slept most of the day today. Yeah, that makes sense. Some days you need to have some rest. I mean, technically we're supposed to have at least one solid day of rest a week. Which is interesting because some cultures tried to get rid of the day of rest. And at terrible consequence for their culture. Oh, I think I talked too much in the vids. Yep. No, it's fine. You're getting rhythm figured out. It something that you'll learn along the way. If there's anybody that I know who talks too much during videos, it's me. I will ramble on a subject for 2-3 hours in one go. As long as you have a interesting amount of conversation points, I think you'll be in the clear. Which you'll figure out that rhythm as time goes on. But it's a good start. One thing to explore is editing. Try as much to edit stuff down. When you get that sort of concept figured out of how much to edit, then it starts becoming routine. And eventually you can get things down to almost like a template. And then you start using previous videos as your template for the new ones. If you can figure that part out, it will help out tremendously. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. I was tasked to do that a couple years ago. That was part of my job. And I found out the hard way that I'm terrible at that sort of stuff. Imagine my surprise. I can edit long-form videos. I can edit stuff that is designed to be 20, 40, 60 minutes long. But I struggle with pacing on short videos. It takes me so long to do it. And they never turn out good enough. The best ones I probably ever did were the Red Dead streams. And even so, they were not very good. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. I'm going to back up. Actually, let me reload this scene. Because I actually want to duplicate that. Now I got the idea of where that needs to go. But I'm going to do one alteration to that. So we're going to duplicate that. Put it over here. I said put it over here. There we go. There was a video project I got to work on where we had to try and streamline content down, and it looked horrible. The project was complete trash, and I don't say that lightly. It was a horrible project to have to work on. Thankfully, I didn't have to finish it. But it was something where I kind of learned that just because you have a video, just because you have everything kind of figured out, that you may actually be setting yourself up for failure just by trying to follow through with it. The video was a food review. And when I heard about the project I had been tasked on, I was very upset. I was very upset because I felt used for making dribble. And when we finished the video, I looked at it and looked at the guy who had commissioned it and was like, "Who's going to watch this?" And he's like, "Oh, everyone's going to want to watch this. Everybody loves these food things." Nope. And it was so bad. So bad. And thankfully that one never saw the light of day. But a lot of money was spent on it. And I'll bet that if we had actually followed through with the project, we probably would have gotten 1,000 views max, which wouldn't have even paid for the food that was being reviewed, let alone people's wages. Do you redub your own videos? I do indeed. I've also gotten into the habit of doing that also for professional videos that I'm tasked with, and it's actually turned out pretty well. It is something where, as I've worked on projects, it becomes apparent about how important it is to pace things properly. And I find that scripting videos is actually beneficial. Now, you can't script everything. A lot of stuff you kind of have to do on the fly. But scripting videos is also very handy. It takes a lot of effort to create the stuff beforehand, but then, it gets so much easier when it's all said and done. When you get to the final stage, that's when it really starts to make sense about how helpful it is. Dang nabbit. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. Okay. Let's try this. A couple of years ago, I had a couple of people that they didn't like the fact that I was doing voiceovers for some of my own work. I was commissioned for stuff, and they wanted to hire a voice actor, and I was not very good at it. And I found out that over time, it got better and better with practice. And then it wasn't until like recently that people actually are like, "Hey, we actually want you to be doing the narration." Up until then, it was always like, no, you're not supposed to do the narration. We're supposed to get this other person to do the narration. And so for me, it was a very big change in the way that I did things. Yeah, the live reaction, that is a challenge. You can't really script that sort of stuff. But here's something that people have done. I used to have like cards in the area. Nope, I moved them into the other room. So there's a couple of things I've seen people do. Oh. I found some of my own business cards. This is what I use for a certain group that won't be named. The cards actually turned out really well. I got to make myself more of these, but update them with the new Castercraft graphics. Anyway, so let's say that I have just opened up my pack of cards. One of the things that I would suggest starting with is cut the tops off, and that way it's all good to go. And that way you can cut down on that part of the video. Next, when you pull them out, you can either flip them around, and this is something I found with some cards. They'll find out like the most valuable card is sometimes placed in the same place over and over again, and then they'll make sure that the biggest card's put at the very back of the stack, and then they'll flip it over, and then they'll start doing the review of things like that. So that's what I mean by the preparation. You might have to figure out what the logic is behind some of the cards when you do it, and then just find ways to streamline it. But doing the reaction live is definitely something you cannot script, but you can't always script the beginning of things. And there are some people that they will actually do the commentary afterwards. They'll fake it basically, which is, I'm not going to say that's the best way to do it. I think it's actually very tacky, but a lot of people do that, and they find good success with it. And by the way, the people that do that, they have a bit of ego problems. So I'm not saying that's the way to go. Yeah, they were a lot of fun to make. And actually, I'm the most recent one that I made, I have not reprinted just because it took so long to make. And I don't really have a really good place to make them around here. This apartment's not favorable to that. Where is the most recent one? Because I gave them all away at this point. Oh, that's right. It's not in here. It's in the original Alaska Man Jeff. Oh, by the way, I gotta find another graphic for the up-and-coming stream I'm going to be participating in. There's 2 streams I got coming up that I've been asked to participate in, so I gotta remember to share that. Not this time. All right, searching card. Bingo. And large. Oh, wait a minute. What's that doing there? Ooh, copy that. Front. Here we go. So this was the most recent card. It's busy. And honestly needs to be trimmed up quite a bit. I also got way better graphics to put in there now. It's going to be interesting to update this because it's going to get 2 versions. One is going to be the Alaska Man Jeff, and the other one's going to be the Castercraft. Part of the problem, I got rid of Photoshop, and that's how this one was made, along with InDesign. Ugh. So I don't want to get those again. So I'm going to be basically recreating a lot of it inside of the new program Affinity, which I do not like. Affinity is a very troublesome sort of program, but it still is cheaper, and I do like that aspect of it. Okay, put these over here. All right, now that is saved for the future. Most valuable ones are in the back, so it's nice. Perfect. Hey, it saves you some extra effort. I know that the Pokemon cards, they put them in the middle so they wouldn't get damaged. Definitely makes it a bit of a problem, though, when you're trying to open up a pack and whatnot. Yeah, kind of back to square one with this. That's frustrating. All right, so grab these parts and let's begin this process again. What happens if we just grab... all the way up to here. By the way, bevels are one of the most frustrating aspects of any 3D model. That's why it's taken this one so long to do, because this is a very odd bevel to have to try and do. Very odd bevel. No worries. Oh yeah, the QR code for the business card. Yeah, so I wanted to have a QR code, but I could not get it to work on this card. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up having the barcode that's right here, and the barcode actually works. By the way, one of the reasons why this is a problem, because my URL got updated, and so the business card no longer works. By the way, after I made these, 3 years later, someone submits trading card ideas for the people that were a part of that YouTube group. I had already made them. And people are like, wow, this is a great idea. How come no one's ever thought of this before? Oh, I know why. Because he got rid of the one person that actually was trying to take you guys to the next level. We already had them good to go. I had it for every one of the team members figured out. That's what happens when you let emotions control you. And you end up casting aside the people that are trying to help. I love making cards, by the way. Cards are a fun thing to tinker on. All right, so let's see here. You know what's really unfortunate in many ways is that sometimes you have people that are in a very bad place. And you try and help them. And they're not... it's not always easy to continue to help after things come to a conclusion. Now, there's a couple of folks that were in a very bad spot. And when you get removed, then you're like, well, how do you help those people afterwards? And the answer is you really can't. You can try, but no one's ever going to appreciate the help that you have to offer. But here's the thing. You have to be ready to deal with that and say, you know what? It's for a time, and honestly, you're not always going to be needed. And you just got to learn to accept that. I know of a lot of projects. One was a card game. There's a lot of people with some really good card game ideas. And it's a fairly easy thing to try and build out. The hardest part of it is trying to come up with the artwork. And when I was getting started, I learned early on that you have to be ready to take on every aspect of a project. You really can't hire people and expect things to pan out, especially nowadays. Nowadays, it's near impossible to rely on people. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because I do not want to cast people aside. But I do realize the reality is that a lot of people don't have the same desire to want to see a project through to its conclusion. They'll never have the same level of passion that somebody who is the developer, they won't have the same level of passion that the developer has. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to be ready then to step up into every task and to not lash out at people afterwards. That is the mark of a good leader. Sadly, that's also one of the things that a lot of people think that they can be able to outsource. Oh, I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z. I'll just hire somebody for that. And then they learn the hard way over time that, dang, that's not actually really possible. Okay, why is that part happening? I mean, this is almost done. This technique is working, but there is that one part. There's a couple of games I really want to be able to make, of which some of them are pretty complex ideas. Eventually, I want to get to the point of where I can actually follow through with some of these ideas, and I have a couple of them that I have like a preliminary prototype that is something that can be experimented with, but to actually see it through to completion is not going to be an overnight thing. It'll take a little bit of effort. Okay, what is this piece? Why can I not see what is transpiring here? Just going to keep hiding parts until I come across it. Whoop. That be a part. Okay. So that... Well, now. One of the more interesting things I've noticed with some games there's a couple of people, they have a really good idea, and a lot of people where they have mediocre ideas. And each one of them is going to fight really hard to try and make sure their ideas come about. Well, there's one guy that I know who spent a lot of time trying to develop his ideas. It was a 10-year process for him to figure that stuff out. And finally, it was around 3 years ago, that he got his first real success. And now his game is being published and doing fairly good in the sales. It was a lot of money that he spent in it. And technically, I don't think he's made his money back, but he definitely got a substantial amount. Maybe not to justify the amount that he invested into it, but pretty darn close. All right, so this is the part. Get rid of the bevel just in case. No. Bring that back. Oh, golly. But anyway, I bring up the guy in his game, which, by the way, it was a D&D game. I bring it up because he had an idea that took him a long time to see any sort of positive outcome. Anything that's worthwhile is going to take a substantial amount of time. And when it's all said and done, not everyone's going to appreciate it. And sometimes you'll make something that will take a while for it to finally see any sort of real progress. People that find immediate success, many times they make a terrible mistake in their process of trying to get something out there. One of those groups is one that I've been thinking about for a while, and I've not really addressed this group a whole lot. I've tried to avoid it for the most part. Come on, why is this causing issues? I've avoided it for the most part, but it is something where I kind of want to at least address it, even just a little bit. And that is the group that made Hazbin Hotel. That show, I've not watched it. I watched the first episode because people told me to, and I was sickened by it. It is an evil show. Messed up evil show. It is the culmination of really the satanic worldview. What's really frustrating is the person who made it, who had the idea, is seen as this great innovator, as this incredible creator who came up with this genius idea. And in the end, it is truly an abomination. will ever really say that it is good, or that can't really say that it's good or has any sort of true quality to it. But there are still a lot of people who think of it as a work of art. It's not funny, despite what a lot of people will say. It's not entertaining. It's really just a carnal trip, which our culture doesn't really need more of. We have plenty of that in our culture, and we need to get rid of a lot of it. And that will make a lot of people very upset to hear that. I know some people, they are big fans of that show. Big fans. And if you ask them what they like about it, most of them will say, oh, it's entertaining. Oh, it's funny. Oh, it's very real. I have seen some clips, yeah. That's all that most people need to see. But there's something I kind of want to pinpoint. This is the one part that I'm not really hearing people talk about. I remember when I first saw the first episode. It was years before the main show came out. It was a pilot episode. And the pilot episode got the creator, they gave her millions and millions of dollars. A brand new up-and-coming animator and filmmaker. She was given everything that she wanted in order to pull off the series. She squandered a lot of it, was known to be very abusive. The team quit, and they still paid her a fortune. She got depressed. I think that she eventually got removed from the project, if I remember right. Not certain. But the thing is that the person who made it had a very dark spirit. And when it was all said and done, that dark spirit ended up destroying the project. Now, it still happened, but it still caused immense pain to people. Just because you're entertaining doesn't mean that you get a pass. In many ways, it's more proof that you're in need of help. Really. Speaking of help, I need help with this piece. Oh, golly, why is it doing this? I wonder. No? Get face orientation. Why is this part so difficult? But I want to give like a comparison. That person had an idea. It wasn't even a fully fleshed out idea. That person had an idea. She did a pilot episode, spent years in development, abused people, and when it finally came out, it was a satanic fever trip. That person found success, despite really not deserving any success whatsoever. Who's to blame for that stuff coming out? Is it the creator? Is it the company, Netflix, for, I think it was Netflix, for commissioning it? Was it backers for the first project? What triggered, who deserves the blame for that thing being created? Well, a little bit of everybody. Little bit of everybody. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I think I've seen this part before. Okay. Let's turn off the face orientation. Right, that pinch is there, but then it wants to do that. Okay, so this is what's going on. I didn't want to have to touch it in this way, but there's no other way around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and isolate that. Turn off subdivision. The problem is I have to connect these. Dagnabbit. Oh well. Have you seen Angel Studios? Has a bunch of has Butch Hartman as the animator for a new series. I have seen that. It has promise. I won't say it's. I'm not a fan of it, and I know that may sound a little weird. Maybe it sounds really weird. But let me explain. So the reason why I'm not a fan of it is let me pull up the reference here. And I know this probably sounds absolutely crazy, especially with all the values that I hold to. All right, here we go. Angel Studios. The first show on this list is troubling to me. Tootle Twins. This was my first introduction to this group. It was the one that I realized made me never want to watch them again. I actually knew somebody who worked on this project. The reason why I have such an issue with it is because this is right-wing propaganda. Now, I am technically on the right. I'm a conservative. I voted for Trump 3 times, and I still hold to a lot of conservative values. It has religious aspects, and I agree with that. But here's the problem. If you watch the episodes, you'll notice a lot of them are not even funny. It's all designed to be a beatdown. And I don't like that approach. This is where, even though I agree with it, it crosses from being educational or entertaining and goes into just a beatdown. You don't win people over when you do that. What that does is it's designed to indoctrinate people from a young age. It's not even designed to teach them good life skills. Instead, it makes them into bullies. And I've seen a lot of people that I agree with on 90% of the issues. But the way that they approach it makes me not like it. Which is tough because when you then go into something that's religious, we're supposed to be people that inspire and call into to think more critically, to have dialogue with all sorts of people, and then you have a studio that does this, and then they also do this at the same time. It's causes some problems, at least in my personal experience. Now, I have a prediction Now, this is a bit out there. I don't think this group is going to survive. Why do I say that? Because there's other Christian groups who have come and gone. And some of them had very good values. But they failed at some very important aspects. And that is partially a bit of their approach mixed in with some of the other compromises that they make. We don't see the compromises on this side. I've seen some things that they've posted on social media that makes me concerned. One of the biggest problems is their partnerships that they've done with other companies. We'll see what happens. Maybe they will turn around, maybe they won't. But I'm not a fan of them. Even though they've done things that have done well, there's just other things that concern me about their future. They're too trendy. Indeed. Now, Sound of Freedom I've heard good things about. I've also heard some other things about it too. And while I agree with what kind of takes place in there, I can agree with some of the challenges I've heard to it as well. I've not seen a lot of their stuff, and that's on me. I don't really watch a whole lot of stuff. Kind of looks interesting, but I'm not going to be buying into their company to be able to watch some of that. Take a look at the trailer, though. Refresh that. An hour-long season premiere. Could have trimmed that down a little bit. Okay, well that's a really weird control. No, that's the soundtrack. These are really weird controls. Want to just skip through it. Okay, you know what? We're not going to bother with that. Haven't seen it, but super heavy topic indeed. There was a really good film I saw when I was at college. It was a story about trafficking. Now, here's the other thing. Okay, now here's the other reason why I can't stand Angel Studio. It's because, and I know I'm prejudiced on this one. It's because they tried to claim that they're doing something unique and different when VeggieTales had done the same thing. I was like, wait a minute. You guys are claiming to be original, and a lot of the ground that you're trying to cover has already been figured out by previous groups. And by the way, that's the same issue that I have with Daily Wire. Daily Wire, which they've spent a lot of money trying to pretend like they are the only group that is really trying to save the culture. And there were other companies, other Christian companies that did a much better job than Daily Wire did. By the way, I was actually told, go and work for Daily Wire. And I was like, nope. I just looked into their group, and I could not agree with their stance on gay marriage. Over that issue is why I couldn't actually make that work. But here's what I find interesting about groups like Angel. Other people have found things that worked in the past by and still were able to be kind and creative at the same time. Some of their content is very much designed to shock and awe. The Sound of Silence show, there was another film that came out in 2011, I want to say. That one was sobering, and it was good. And I went up to the people, because I got to see it saw it with the creators there, able to answer questions. I asked them, what is their next project, because I wanted to get in on it. And they said very soberly, we're not doing any more. What we saw shocked us so much that we can't, that our crew just quit. We can't take it anymore. We learned too much to be able to just go back to making regular films. I can respect that. But here's the thing. When someone else comes along and does the same thing and claims that they're unique in that, I get a little irritated at that, because I'm like, somebody else did that too. Don't try and claim their glory. Because the other group was a Christian group, a hardcore Christian group who was so shooken to their core in the project that they made that they had to go out and become missionaries themselves. That's commendable. I also know that there's, well, I can't go into the details. I also know somebody who did work on the project of Tootle Twins. It did not go so well. And I saw a couple episodes of Tootle Twins. And this is where it's frustrating because, like I said, VeggieTales did a lot of that stuff better. And I loved VeggieTales. It was great. It was hilarious. It was top-notch. Had good Christian values. And everybody was learning from it, even atheists. And people had a respect for it. Tootle Twins comes along, and they do the beatdown method. I'm like, that's not going to win, folks. I don't care who you think you are. That is not going to win people over. Here's the other thing that I want to bring up. If I was to go out and some people make a deal with very evil people in order to make a project come about. Some people live to regret that problem, regret those decisions. But that being said, a lot of people are going to have to compromise in one way, shape, or form. For VeggieTales, the thing that they compromised on was they hired people that did not believe what they believed. And eventually, their company was eaten from the inside. There's some other factors, like who you partner with. VeggieTales partnered with the same company that made Barney the Dinosaur and Bob the Builder, who eventually, that company sued them out of existence over a partnership deal. Angel Studios made a deal with some entities that are not necessarily the ones that you would want to be partnering up with. And the people that we're doing it with were with folks that actively believed in the gay rights movement and the ability to give gay people the right to adopt kids. And so if you are a company that wants to pride yourself on family values, and you then partner with people that believe that you can rewrite the rules to that, and you can't challenge them because they're in the same political camp as you, ooh, that's some dangerous territory to get into. By the way, look, that fixed it. Huzzah. That was a labor-intensive thing to try and fix. But now I can be able to duplicate that across. Not everyone's going to ever... You're not going to be able to force everyone to agree with you. But there are people in this world that will eventually challenge you. I learned that the hard way. I was working with some folks, and I made the mistake of compromising with folks that I did not agree with. And I ended up paying that price. Now, fortunately, it happened early on in my career. It's kind of hard when it happens later on, when the deal starts to become more and more difficult to escape. Actually, I'm going to grab the second one here, because that's what I did on the other. This is easily the... Well, I'm going to say this is the second most complex piece that I've had to work on. Fortunately, it means that the others are never going to be as bad. What the heck? VeggieTales just got bought by Netflix. At some point, it's a ministry, still even when it's not in the same family. It's just like having a gay coworker. You still got to love on them and show them Christ. We are the only Bible some people read. 'Tis true. There's one challenge to that, and this is the part that I experienced that made me fairly staunch on that opinion. There was a guy. I won't go into all the details because it's actually a fairly complex story. There was a guy that I was working with. This was early on. I was very naive to the ways of the world. And there's a lot of things that took place that I didn't fully understand. Not until it was kind of too late. There was a guy who came up and was trying to get me to go with him to some very unsavory places. Every weekend he would say, "Hey, you should come along with me." I was like, no, not able to do that. I didn't realize at first where he was talking about. At first I thought he was referring to something that was a little bit more benign. It wasn't until afterwards that I found out, oh my goodness, this guy is perverted. I didn't know that. And that kind of goes to show how much, thankfully, how much my parents sheltered me, but also at the same time, my parents sheltered me so much that I couldn't see what was transpiring. Well, why was that a problem? I mean, that guy was part of the world. It probably wasn't anything I was ever going to be able to win him over on. But I also didn't realize. Well, there was eventually a day A day where I suddenly found out that he was about ready to do something terrible to another coworker. And I learned something that day. Some people are so far outside the truth that when you see them do something that is going to harm somebody else, you have to step up. I did, but it wasn't heated. I won't go into the details just because this is being streamed, but a guy who had very, very ill intent for one of our coworkers. And it was something where at first I thought, well, how can I be able to help teach this person, to help them veer away? And then I realized they were going to do this regardless. And so I suddenly had an outburst. I shouted at him, and was it the best option? Probably not. But at least he understood what was going on, that there was something dark in what he was about ready to do. I have zero tolerance for gay people. And I don't have a problem saying that on stream. Because I was working at Disney, and I found out what those couples will do. And that part I cannot mention on stream, because while those of us working at the company became aware, that's not something I can talk about openly. I can mention about that off stream and whatnot. Well, what ended up transpiring, though, that I can say, is that it became something where in order to protect one group of people, you have to be able to reject another. And that's where I came with the realization that I can never compromise on that issue. I know some people that they have different ways of being able to approach that stuff, and I can understand that. There's going to be people with different, with the ability to reach certain people groups that I don't have myself. But when it comes to this issue, I also have been scarred by it, and I realize that there's not much I can do to be able to assist, other than to say, no, I can't accept certain worldviews. It's unfortunate because there's a lot of people in this world who really do not know one way or the other what is the right path. And you have to be able to reach them somehow. But when you hear about things that end up in abuse, kind of like the Sound of Silence movie, it can shell shock you. And to the point of where you're like, I never want to be around this again. And you end up quitting your job, and you're like, no, I can't be around this anymore. There's a time and place to make a stand. In this regard, I don't know what. But I will not work with a place that is a Christian company that overlooks this stuff. But again, that's because of personal experiences, and I can't overlook it anymore. I do value very much the so there's some people that I've tried to be a light to, and some people that I do not agree with on many things, and some people that are fairly bad off. Some people have some pretty bad worldviews and pretty bad actions that they do. But they all have one thing in common. They recognize that they need to fix something. It's very hard when you come across somebody who doesn't understand that they need to fix something. Very hard indeed. It's kind of like if you go up to somebody and you say, hey, there's a dangerous cliff over there. And the person responds with saying, yes, I see it. I know it about it. I'm not really sure what I can do about it. And then you look at them and say, well, let me help you to get away from that. That person understands and they're willing to find a solution. There's some people in this world that don't want a solution. And those are the ones that thankfully have not had to deal with a whole lot of that. But I do know some people, they have to deal with that all the time. All sorts of challenges. And one of the things that there are some people that can be able to interact with folks of that community, no problem. But it's always with the understanding of, let's help you escape. Need a rest? Have a pleasant rest there, Forgiven. Rest well and chat with you later, whenever that is. Hope that you have a good Thursday. This is an interesting design I'm having to work around here. Oh, that's how to do this. Okay. Here we go. So, I'm going to isolate this. Then, I'm going to do a slightly different approach for this. Okay, here we go. Delete this right here. And then we're going to take this and extrude down. If you've ever been somebody who, oh wait a minute, we got a cheap viewer on the Twitch side. Gonna delete that. Block that. And creator dashboard. There we go. Oh, looks like it was already deleted. Perfect. All right. I wonder where people draw their ethical line in the sand. I wonder how many people say, this is the point where I can go no further. You kind of already heard one of mine. It's not the only one, but it's probably one of the most important. There are a couple of things in this world that you'll have to make a decision. You have to decide where you're going to stand on an issue, and it's not going to win you friends. It's not going to win you a lot of opportunity. In fact, it could be incredibly destructive. And you may learn the hard way that making a stand will well, you may learn that making a stand is being made difficult and near impossible on purpose. There was a day that I had to make a stand. It was not enjoyable in the slightest. It was humiliating. And it didn't necessarily pan out well in the end. It was actually very much just made you feel like a failure. Some people like the idea of trying to get you to compromise. Trying to escape that sort of world can take everything. To call someone out when no one else wants you to call them out is seen. Basically, there's no way that you don't end up being viewed as the bad guy. It's just about impossible. You can even describe to people just flat out like where you stand on an issue, and they'll still misinterpret it. There was someone who, when I had to make a stand, ended up viewing me in a horrible, horrible way. Because I didn't get the opportunity to defend myself. And so I was given basically no other option but to take my licks, you could say. I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't try and argue otherwise. Everyone just thought I was trying to cause problems. No one realized the reasons that those things were transpiring. They just immediately assumed the worst. Being able to pay attention to a friend in need is being able to pay attention and notice when someone is in need is a life skill that I dare say most people in our modern culture don't have. It's not a very pleasant sort of thing to have to really lean into. Why is that part so messed up? Let's try and line this up again. Okay. So if someone comes up to you and actually, let's skip that. We'll return to this subject in the future. Let me think about it a little bit before we go into the next discussion point. I'm going to take another stab at the issue of madness that I was bringing up the other day. So I've been thinking about this for a while because, in all honesty, I'm noticing horrible trends taking place. And it very much feels like our culture is feeding off this idea of that anger can be justified in allow you to kind of lose yourself in rage. And one of the things that I've noticed with this is that social media is amplifying that. We won't go into it too deep, but it is something where I am noticing this trend a whole lot. People that are sensible who start to get enraged at the slightest little thing, and then it starts to become all-consuming, and they don't know how to break from it. And eventually, it finally just causes them to snap. The reason why I want to bring this up is that I've noticed people that seem very much to be intentionally trying to stir the pot. They're trying to make other people get angry, trying to get them to snap. Man, this part is frustrating. Huh. Let's just slowly eat away at this here. Slowly build this thing up. But I am noticing this, and I'm noticing it happening with particular people, and it's like it almost feels coordinated. Maybe other people are noticing this, but it really does feel like there's some understanding that this stuff is designed to cause people to snap. And then they'll kind of team up against somebody. try it this way. I didn't want to have to go this route, but I don't think there's any other way around this. We're just going to call it quits. But if you see somebody picking on another person on social media, it's important to reach out to them and try and see if they're okay. There's also a point of where that's not really going to be possible. Some people don't want help. Some people just want to embrace the rage. I am really starting to think that a lot of people, while I think social media can be good, I think that a lot of people are thinking that somehow they are all able to be an influencer, and so thus they all should be battling things out for the culture or whatnot. So then when somebody starts to lose an argument and they start to snap mentally, that's where I'm starting to notice some of these people kind of showing about how they really shouldn't have been there to begin with, how they really shouldn't be trying to be cultural advocate or expert, whatever you want to call it. It really becomes unhealthy, and it seems to me like some people have been told by either social media or news or whatnot that they need to become opinionated on everything. Now I'm one to speak because I'm extremely opinionated on stuff, but I also try and have a reason as to why. A lot of people don't have that reason. A lot of people they're doing it because they've seen someone else do it, not because they strongly believe in it one way or the other. I feel sorry for a lot of the folks that really want to get engaged in the in online discussions, because a lot of them have good hearts. They really want to try and help, and because they see other people doing stuff on social media and being able to wage arguments, they think that somehow they can contribute. But it becomes a problem if they start to get so angry that they start to treat everybody as if they're competition, or if they start to treat people as non-human, or they start to treat people with no civility. Civility is everything. If you become uncivil in your discourse, you lose people immediately. There is very little comeback for that. So if you have any sort of influence, you have to learn to temper that sort of behavior. You can have strong opinions, but you got to be careful. You can't just go around waving your tongue like a sword and trying to get like the high score on a game. You can't do that. By beating people down emotionally, you're not going to win them over. But somebody who has an understanding of the damage of the tongue, that's perfect for that sort of stuff. They know how to engage people and not do a beatdown. But if you don't know that, whether you're an influencer or not, that can be a big problem. Like if someone was come along and used the FAG word in order to try and win an argument. By the way, that is a very bad trend. Very bad. Shame on the people that are doing that. Because some of them should know better. But you're not going to win people that way. You can try, but eventually it makes you discouraged. It makes you cynical. Then because it becomes the only argument that you have. Oh, I don't agree with you. FAG. It's like, well, now you just lost everybody. Were you trying to win someone over with that argument? Oh, but I got all the people online to like me. Yeah, sure. You also got a lot of people to no longer listen to you. Who would you rather have listening to you? The people that get excited when you use a foul word like that? Or the people that are persuaded through a kind word? What sort of person do you want to be? Love your neighbor and pray for your enemies. Those are the things we're told to do. If you immediately start calling people the F word, and well, what you've also done is doesn't matter how much you can say that, oh, well, I'm going to be praying for you. The moment you say that that somebody else is kind of beyond help. And you're not going to win those people over. So what do you do if you want to try and engage someone like that? Hey, greetings, Inertia. How you doing? How was your Wednesday? And start of your Thursday? Looking for inspiration from other artists might give me an insight on how I approach a very difficult problem. Art block. Aha, you want to know how to get through art block. What sort of mediums do you work in? I have had that problem many times. And I'm not necessarily going to be able to give you all the best ways to necessarily get over it, because if I knew that, then I would be perfect at what I do. But I'm not. I'm a work in progress, like all of us. There's a book. Do I have the book near me? I don't, but I know where it is. Be right back. All right, I'm back. And I have one of the better books I've come across, The Imagineering Workout. So back when I was in college, I wanted very much to try and become an Imagineer. Lo and behold, that wasn't going to happen. They have a very selective process, but one of the great things they have are warm-up exercises in this thing. This is a Disney book that was made for Imagineers to come up with creative ideas that were outside the box. And one of the big things that they do for being able to overcome some sort of hurdle, whether it's some sort of art block or if it is a project that they've been tasked with that they don't even know where to start, they start off by basically doing a series of attempts to try and mix and match ideas that have absolutely no connection. And then they try and look for ways to force those things together. Here's an example. Let's say, for example, that someone comes up and says, hey, we need to figure out how to create a type of logo. We want a logo that has to do with a scissor company. I'm saying that because I see scissors right here. We need a scissor logo. Come up with something. And you think, well, what can I do with a scissor other than just put scissors out here? And what you do instead is like you think, okay, how about we start to bring things together that don't necessarily fit? And you think, okay, well, we're going to start off by putting some scissors out there, but let's do something else. Let us also put out a sword. And it's like, well, it's a cutting thing. It's kind of similar to scissors. And you're trying to come up with a logo out of that. But then you say, hey, let's come up with something completely different. Let's throw an antler into there. And then you start trying to figure out how to mesh those things together. They might not necessarily be naturally designed to fit together, but it forces you to think outside of the box. Another way how this would be applied is like they were trying to come up with shorts and gags back in the olden days of Disney. And they would say, okay, let's just throw something out there. Let's throw a pink elephant out there. And then they would have to try and figure out how to incorporate a pink elephant into their project. It didn't mean that's what they were going to end up with, but many times it gave them something that they were not expecting. So I mentioned about the scissors earlier. So you're trying to come up with a scissor logo. You have a sword, and then you have this antler. And you're like, wait a minute, antler, this kind of reminds me of like kind of a bug, like a bug's claws or something like that. And then you look at the sword and think, what if we had like an Asian sort of bug? And then you think, oh, wait a minute, let's have a beetle that has like scissor pinchers, and then you use that as your logo. It may not have been your original idea to go with that direction, but it gives you something that's outside of the box. In doing so, it sparks the brain down a different path than what you're typically used to going down. Hopefully, inspiring you to take a gamble. So, anyway, hopefully that made sense. But it is something where this book really does help, has a lot of good ideas, but it is an introduction. It is not designed to be your go-to solution. It's mostly just quotes about how other people tried to problem solve and come up with creative ideas that were outside the box. And then you're supposed to take that and try and use it in your own creative ways to troubleshoot using the tips and tricks that these people used. Pretty good insight. Well, hopefully it contributes and is able to help you out. There's a lot of times where I have a project that I'm like, I really don't know where to go with it. Sometimes the best thing to do, put it down. Go try something else. and come back to it. There are a lot of projects I work on. And I will admit, a lot of them really aren't going anywhere. I've tried to make some of them really pan out, and it just hasn't happened. Part of that is my own issues. I'm not as professional as I would like to be. But sometimes you've just exhausted your current amount of ideas. Let me give you an example. Back when I was a kid, I had an idea for a fantasy story. And I got all excited about it because it was original, it was special. Well, it was original for me at the time. I found out later on that there were some people that had kind of gone with a similar sort of angle, and so thus it wouldn't have worked anyway. But anyway, I thought that the story was unique and special. I came up with an elaborate 3-part story, and I was really trying to figure out how to make it work. And as I was going along the path, you could say, I realized when I did my first test with it, and I actually asked some people their insight on it, it didn't go so well. And rather than double down on the idea, I realized my level of experience wasn't enough to complete the project. As a result, I had to sit back and wait for many years to pass before I finally felt comfortable approaching the subject again. And when I finally did, lo and behold, suddenly a whole new string of ideas came about because I had a whole new set of life experiences to draw from. Now, I know it's super expensive, but one of the best ways to get inspiration for projects is to travel. Now, again, not everyone's going to have that luxury, but that is a way to get life experiences in a very important way to your artistic or creative endeavors. Most of my projects hearken to something in my past. Now, I have a very big and complex past. My parents were very intent on trying to give us as many experiences as possible. And a lot of them were tough ones too. And there are a lot of ones that I can now draw from because of that. But those were also seen through a child's eyes. And so when I had the fantasy story, it sounded childlike. Fast forward a couple of years, I had adult experiences. And when I approached it again, I no longer had the simplicity that the original concept had. Now, the fantasy story has great potential, and now I really want to tell the story, but I'm holding off on it because it's going to take a bit to do. So even though I have a solid idea now, I'm still sitting on it, realizing that I can't pull it off just yet. So yeah, sometimes sit down, disconnect from it, try something else, or wait until a new life experience can give you some ideas. And sometimes it could be as simple as getting ideas from another artist. It could be something as simple as getting some artwork that someone else has done, be able to reference it, you can call that good. Okay, come on. One thing I can definitely say, don't use an AI. That's the one thing I will say 100%. Never, ever, 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 ever use an AI. The reason why is very important. You want to be an artist, your brain is your tool. An AI is going to steal that. It's going to steal your creativity. And sure, it may give you the ability to get over the hurdle this once. But then you go back and it becomes harder and harder and harder. And pretty soon you're leaning on the machine more and more and more. And pretty soon you start to sound like the machine. Yes, I have seen this happening. And it's like big red flags are being set off right now. Like how this is like impacting artists. So if you can avoid that, you will have overcome so much. Just had a eureka moment. Aha, eureka. Success. Well, hopefully, it is just what you need. Competition is an animation competition for who can provide the best fight scene. Having trouble storyboarding. I'm going to try and watch someone who practices medieval sword fighting. Hey. Now here's an idea. Best fight scene. Let me tell you something. This is actually not well discussed in the artistic world. How do I put this? There are 1,001 different styles of fighting that you can do in media. I can guarantee you 1,000 of that 1,001 are repetitive in the same old story over and over and over again. There's 1% of that. Well, no, a fraction of a percent. That would be a 0.1% of those things is actually going to be original. How do you find a way to make it original? Do something that is either historic or comical or something that frustrates the fighter. One of the best examples of somebody who gets frustrated by the things that he's fighting with is Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan intentionally makes his fight sequences as comical as possible by forcing himself to have to deal with things that no normal fighter would ever have to deal with. It'll be something like he suddenly has to fight the enemy using a ladder. It's like, why a ladder? Well, it restricts his ability to use his typical techniques. It forces him to think outside of the box. Kind of similar to the Imagineering mindset. If you can break free of that, well, you're going to have a lot more potential at success. That's what will make you stand out. Restrictions. Also, something else about medieval sword fighting. Most people do not know how to do traditional medieval sword fighting. Most people are aware of Hollywood sword fighting. When you see traditional, authentic, European medieval sword fighting, it makes every other sword fighting skill look trivial by comparison. If you get hit on a joust, for example, most Americans, or anyone who's associated with like Hollywood or with maybe the world of Renaissance fairs or whatnot, they're not going to necessarily think about kind of the damage that can happen. Someone who sees authentic medieval fighting will realize that you can get clobbered in some of that stuff. Sword fighting. One of the things that they don't talk about a whole lot, they hold the sword over their head. They don't hold it out forward. That's like rapier fighting. They hold it over their head, and that way they can bring the heavy weight down in order to strike their enemy. Sparks flying everywhere. But yeah, it's some pretty interesting stuff out there that just a little bit of creativity can go a long ways in that stuff. What I'm seeing so far, the fighters connect their swords to your neck, heart, or arm. The fights end in seconds. Something else, depending on the amount of armor you have, it could be a very long, drawn-out fight. So I grew up in Europe, and I got to see authentic medieval Renaissance fair sword fighting. And it was inspiring. But what's more, I also got to see the historic approach that Europeans kind of had with the whole thing. To them, it was a study of their ancestors. So thus, they put a lot of care into it. Well, one of the things that you learn is that a lot of people in the medieval age were actually very genius, and we don't typically think about just how smart their techniques were. There's a couple of medieval channels out there that try to claim that they're authentic, but they're always with like this non-European flair to it. And it's really obnoxious, honestly, because it's like you guys are not familiar with the most basic rudimentary aspects of medieval sword fighting. Not like I'm an expert or anything, but at least I got to see things where people were legitimately getting hurt with it and getting to see people that actually practice the ways of their ancestors. Things like that. Yep, so some of that armor got beat up horribly. And some people had armor so strong that it took very special blades to be able to cut through. Still waiting for like a really authentic modern medieval approach to sword fighting. And there's a couple that get close, but there's a lot that don't. It's kind of like people I keep waiting for like an authentic archer to be in a movie, and no one's an authentic archer. No one shoots arrows the way that they would in the Middle Ages. I don't get it. Everyone's trying to do the trendy stuff. And they never once think that, hey, let's get legitimate archers to do this stuff. Let's not get actors. Let's get stunt doubles that are legitimate archers and give them the bow and arrow and have them do their trick shots or do their rapid fire that they're so used to doing. When you realize that they could actually shoot arrows faster than some people can shoot pistols, it's like, hokey smokes. You need those people in the movies. So I got carving an arrow. Yeah. There's a fletcher that I got to chat with. Somebody who does like traditional fletching techniques. And that's an art form. It's a really neat art form. Dagnabbit. Alright, we're just going to call it one quits there. Why is that piece doing that? This piece will be ugly as can be. All right, I got an idea. Suenda. I do not want to do it in this approach, but I can't find any other way. I wasted so much time on that. There we go. Bro's abusing real world physics. Yep. I really want to know what, how'd that happen? I would really like to see somebody who does a fight sequence, who legitimately understands the concept of entertaining fighting. a lot of fandoms will make fun fight sequences. An example are people that do like Star Wars fan combats. There was a story of Darth Maul that came out a couple of years ago, and everyone's like, oh, it's like a Darth Maul origin story. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be so cool. And it was lame. Oh my goodness, it was so lame. It did not understand one crucial aspect, and that was lore building. It was all about a fight sequence. But once the fight is beginning, it's nothing more than a WWE fight. It's not even entertaining. It's all designed to be mindless, brainless sort of combat. It's not designed to inspire. It's not designed to make you think. And I've yet to see anybody make a good fight sequence that legitimately has put into their thought the concept of story. Until someone can do that authentically, then they'll never be able to graduate to the next level. More interesting things I found is that anything from random nails to loose change can be used as ammo for a flintlock pistol or musket. Hey, now that is something that will make your product stand out. Those are good things to learn. Well, that was the most frustrating piece to try and make. I'm putting that over there and never touching that piece again. Golly, man, I spent hours on that piece. Granted, I'm not doing it very well, but still, not worth it. Watch it become like one of the most important pieces in the future for me. Link data and link modifiers. Finally. All right. If you watch Star Wars, you know that the sword fights all have meanings behind them. In particular, the older ones. Everything had a very particular story behind why the fight happened the way that it did. And thankfully, it really turned out well in those films. Some people, though, when they try and recreate that sort of stuff, they don't understand the effort that goes into making that stuff. And so then they go out and they're like, oh, I'm just going to fight with a sword. Yeah, I'm going to do all these fancy turnarounds and whatnot. And then it just looks corny and tacky. And by the way, that's one of the reasons why what was the story where this happened? It was, oh yeah. It was a story I was writing, in which I was writing a fan fiction. It's one of the first attempts to try and write something that people would be able to read and critique. Now, it didn't actually happen. No one actually really cared other than like 2 people. But at least I got a chance to practice. In the story, I mentioned about a guy who was a trained warrior, and he wanted to finish the fight as fast as possible because it bored him. And then is trying to figure out how to end the fight as quickly as possible, just to show that the guy is a professional. If you're a pro, you don't need to do all the fancy stuff. And if you do that, then it makes the story stand out as well. Or at least it did for me. I thought it stood out. All right, so this is good to go. We're saving this. We're moving on to the next part of this project. What is the next part that I need to do? Let's see. What is on my checklist? I need to refine the rig more. Okay, yeah, that's what I need to do. All right, so let's go up and find the rig. What's the most recent rig? No, this isn't where I put it. Here we go, rigs. No duh. All right, so it's this one, new poses. All right, we're going into here. I've read the books on Star Wars at the most iconic, at the most basic concept. They sort of serve a god with a force that is bipolar. Both sides had great points, but they can't decide whether what the force exactly is. At least that's the story from my understanding. I'm probably wrong. I don't know the original story concept, but I do know that it has definitely taken the world by storm, and it has colored a lot of our culture, for better or for worse. In some ways, I think Star Wars actually was a negative for us. In most ways, it was a positive. But there are some people that it has caused a lot of people to become a little kooky. I will say that. Thankfully, not a ton. Now, when I was younger, I did an attempt to try and recreate a scene from Star Wars. And that was when I noticed the thing about the fighting, because the people that we were working with wanted to do a fighting scene. So we got to learn how to do lightsabers. And this was back before there was a really good standard way of doing lightsaber combat. But one of the things that I noticed with it was... all right, just a second. Let me swap out the character here. One of the things I noticed was there were... that by doing an action scene, we were proving that we didn't know how to act. And that didn't quite click in my head until much later. We had a story that was very pitiful, and unfortunately, it unfortunately, a lot of the things that we could have done would have required us to film a lot more. It's really easy to do an action sequence. It's really hard to get good, solid, heartfelt acting. Now I since have learned some acting techniques. I'm not perfect at it. I can do a decent job at it, but it is something where I learned over time how to get better at it. But when I was at college trying to pull off my first story, it went horribly wrong. There was more people that were awe-inspired and got lost in the story. Okay, now this was horrible. This was horrible. So we were trying to do a scene from Treasure Island, not any movie, but from the book. So we were going back to the root of the book and trying to make a scene from it. The acting, we got the best actors on campus for the roles, and we got it to the point of where the cameraman got so enamored with the performance that was happening that he actually forgot to pay attention to the footage. We came to the end of the shoot, and I asked him if the footage was good to go. And he looked at it and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's perfect." And he handed me the card so I could go back and edit it. So I took it back. I plugged it into the computer. The settings are all blown out. The footage was completely destroyed. There was no salvaging it. And my actors only were good for one day. They wouldn't come back. But that being said, a story is super compelling. An action sequence is fun, but it doesn't last. A meaningful story will enrapture you, and you cannot have a good action sequence without a good story before and after. You can have an action sequence with one strike, basically, and it can be the most anticipated and gut-wrenching moment. But it takes build-up. And if you don't have build-up, it makes no sense. That being said, I have a really fun action sequence I want to do one day. But you're not going to hear it because it is going to take a lot of build-up to pull it off the way that I want it to be. Should probably be writing this down. It is fascinating to me just the how many fun things there are to do in media. And sometimes you write down an idea and you stumble upon it much later. Actually, I came across a couple of ideas the other day that I stumbled across. Let me see if I can pull up one of them. Oh no, that it's written in pencil, and pencil does not show up on this camera. I can't do it. Either way, I came across something that I used to have a story for, and the story didn't work. It's a shame because I really like the story. That piece right there. Duplicate that. There we go. It was a lot of fun to make, but it never had any like deep meaning behind it. Well, a couple of years ago, I was sitting at the so think about where you get inspiration. I get away from my computer. I get out of this apartment whenever I can. I hate being in this apartment. You know why? Because inspiration doesn't come to me in here. It comes from me when I'm outside and I'm observing other people. Let me give you this example. So right here I have a cup of water in my hands. Well, every now and again I will treat myself to a frap. Now, a frap is icy, and it has some pretty interesting effects that take place when you're drinking out of it. You put a straw on the bottom of it, and as you drink, you'll start to see a series of bubbles or cavities start to appear. It'll start to sink in different ways, and it's really interesting. Well, I was trying to come up with an idea. I was discouraged. I wasn't able to come up with anything. I was fighting with it. I was banging my head basically on the keyboard. And like, nothing I've done has worked. And that is true, and that still stands. Nothing I've done has technically worked. There's a couple times I have momentary success, but nothing has actually legitimately been a success story. Well, one day I treated myself to a frap, and I was looking at it, and I saw the way that it was shifting around, and I suddenly got an idea. Now, I won't tell you what that idea is, because I want to try and capitalize off of this one day. But I want to bring this up because even something like that can serve as inspiration. Now I got 4 books in the writing just because of this stupid frap. Okay, no, it was a blessing in that sense. But it became so inspiring when I saw it. I went back and I found the old drawings, and it suddenly inspired me to start writing this novel. And it started out as one scene, and then it became one book. And now it's at the point of where I'm like, I'm going to have to get 4 books before the story is actually completed to what I have envisioned. No more than that, because that's where the story finally wraps up. But you get that idea by looking at what was at the time a $5 frap. Never underestimate where you can get an idea. But man, the one thing that you should never get the idea from, I mentioned this earlier, never get it from AI. I'm not just saying it because it's trendy for me at this point, which, by the way, it kind of is. But I've seen people losing their skills, actively losing their skills. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Folks, this is dangerous. You're losing everything. And they don't realize it. There's a man that I got to meet. He's a filmmaker. I won't mention his name because I don't want him to be... I want the moral of the story to be the main point, not the person himself. He had an idea. It was a really interesting... Well, he had a lot of money. And he had the backing of some big entities, and he wanted to try and get me to work with him on a project. He came up with a story that he was all excited about. He felt special, he felt unique, he felt like he was finally arriving, and I read the story, and it was awful. I told him that. I didn't say it in that way. I was like, you might want to try and tell it like this. And he didn't want to heed that warning. He was trusting his gut. As I understand, his project has since lost him a lot of money, lost him a lot of success, and he hasn't been able to really recover from it. There's people I know who are using AI as their mentor, as their guide to success. And that is killing their creativity. That's what's so concerning to me, is that art requires human beings to create something beautiful that's based upon reality. In some way, shape, or form. That's how we connect with it. The only use I found in AI is a diagnostic tool. To me, AI is just a super calculator that is too talkative. I work at tech and I am like, ChatGPT, what's wrong with my code? It's my last-ditch effort if I can't really get it right. I know a lot of people that that's their approach to it. Now, I personally am so paranoid about it that I can't even do that. It's very concerning to me. Some of the things that kind of have been transpiring in the industry just because of the reliance upon AI. The ability of the brain to process things is a blessing. And something that when we were growing up, I didn't know the damage that a cell phone could do. My parents spared me. They did not give me a cell phone until I was in college, already in my third year. I didn't know a phone long enough to become addicted to it. But I did know people that did become addicted to it. In the same way, I currently now know several people that are becoming addicted to AI. And it's amazing to see what happens when you start to surrender critical thinking. Now, there's a lot of potential with AI, honestly. There's a lot of people that I know personally that are invested massively into AI. I will never trust it, though, because I know too much about tyranny, and I know what happens when you surrender thought. That's one of the reasons why I'm so paranoid about it. And it may happen that AI is completely harmless. I kind of doubt that, but I think that I will be the person who, kind of like the Amish, will resist the technology. And I will learn over time where my boundaries lie based upon how it impacts others. I really, really don't want to be the first one in on the on this particular world of tech. Let's just leave it like that. Okay. By the way, Inertia, do you have, are you building up a portfolio anywhere? Actually, wait a minute. Let me bring that back. Zero that out. Oh wait, that's right. I have to come back here. Grab this and zero. There we go. Like, what's the original? Phooey. Yeah, I do have to get rid of all that. That's one problem of Blender. What's your opinion on AI girlfriends? Greetings there, Baggy. How are you doing? My personal opinion, I have seen nothing replace the need for human beings. I think AI girlfriends, and by the way, the first AI relationship was a woman to an AI man. It was an AI impersonation of her husband who had died. Very unhealthy, in my opinion. Well, actually, not even my opinion. Already, like, the evidence is starting to mount up. What happens when people start to replace human beings with something that's not flesh and blood? I think that it's kind of a problem of our society that is just manifesting as a result. I think that right now we are so lonely as a generation. We're thinking that somehow this is going to solve a problem. But it's not really solving a problem. What it's doing is it's making us all the more disconnected, all the more bitter, all the more lonely. I don't know about you, but I would prefer flesh and blood, a real person, over a machine any day. One of the reasons why is that a person is made in the image of God. A machine is made in an image of man. And man is corrupt and very, very cynical and very evil. And I'm seeing it already happening with our machines. People want to use AI for some pretty nefarious stuff. And I understand. Right now our world is hurting. And it is, like I said, we are a very lonely generation. But it's no reason to abandon natural relations for artificial ones. It's actually really terrifying to think about where some people are going with it. There's a man recently who claimed that he was going to try and marry his AI, and he had a wife and kids. That was in the news recently. They interviewed the guy, and it sounded like he was trying to get clout, but still, it's like, buddy, you have responsibility. Not really. At first, I dream of becoming an artist. Then turns out being good at something is not the same as liking something. I now only really draw, animate as a hobby. You only truly lose if you give up. That is true. That's true. You only lose if you give up. Now, one thing that a portfolio still can do is it gives you something to be able to share and showcase. And that's how you grow. You know what pressure does? It strengthens us. If you've studied space and the idea of traveling to Mars, you may be familiar with the fact that NASA did an experiment. They wanted to see if they could create an artificial greenhouse in preparation for having one on Mars. They went out and they built a structure. They put the trees in. They watered them. They gave it a perfect amount of sunshine. It was perfect temperatures in there. And after a few years, because it took a while for the trees to grow, the trees cracked and broke. They crashed down and they could not stand. And they looked at it and it's like, well, what just happened? Every other plant in here is growing just fine. Look at here. The tomatoes are growing fine. The wheat is growing fine. What's up with the trees? And so they did an investigation. They found out it was the lack of wind. You see, a tree naturally grows very tall, and it has a very strong trunk. But how does that trunk get strong? It gets strong by swaying. The wind blows the tree, and in doing so, it causes stretch marks to start to form, and the tree then has to try and heal from it, and it strengthens as it grows. It detects where it's weak because of that, and it grows stronger and stronger with every windstorm. Sure, one day a windstorm will come along that knocks it down, but the strongest trees can endure 1,000 years or 2,000. When you have someone critiquing, don't think of it as humiliation. Don't think of it as trying to tear you down. Put it out there. And you might find that it's actually strengthening you because you're getting a chance to learn how to stand. Even if you're not good at it, still is a good idea to put it out there. If nothing else, to learn from it. The world is slowly declining. I have seen a lot of people over the last year trying to invest heavy into all this AI stuff. And there's one guy who was very, very lonely, very depressed. And he said, that's it. I'm just going to rely on the AI. That's going to work for one generation and will never work again. I want to try and fix things. I don't know what other people want, but I like the idea of saying, you know what? Can things be problematic? Absolutely. But it's also an opportunity to try and say, let's try and figure out how to fix it together. Some things you can build on your own. I can make an animation on my own. I can make art on my own. There's a couple things I can't do on my own. I can't really build a house on my own. Eventually, you're going to need some sort of equipment to help you out with it, or another person. Society needs people. It doesn't need a machine. A machine cannot fix it. I hope very much that we change as a society and we get better at this. Because there's going to be a reckoning in many ways. People are hurting and we need a way to start to heal. But then AI comes along and suddenly a lot of the efforts I've currently seen get thwarted, and people are like, oh, let's just go along with the AI and just call it good enough. No! People! Madness. Thankfully, a lot of younger folks seem to be waking up to this problem, but not as many as I would like. Not really sure what's up with AI relationships. Can't imagine not being able to hug your significant other. It sounds pretty painful. Reminds me of Blade Runner. Yep. Isn't that weird? We are living a dystopian story right now. And it's honestly, it's because of our elites that this is happening. It's not of our own choice. None of us asked for this. But we've been given that. But here's the thing. We got a choice whether or not we use it. I was talking with someone a while back. They were mentioning about how they felt that we were unable to make a difference, unable to make change. And they're like, everything in this world just feels like it's falling apart. Yep, it is. And then they're like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. There's always something you can do about it. One of the things that I've personally come to believe is that one of the easiest things you can do to thwart all the nonsense happening right now, refuse to play. Pull out. Deny them the resource of your time and your money. I'm not saying pull out from society. Pull out from the things that you don't believe in. Don't let it control you. And in doing so, you will have probably more success over it. Personally, as in my personal experience. Oh, come on. Get back. Grab that. Okay. Come on. Grab that. Grab that. And focus. There we go. Wait a second. Oh my goodness. Oh, there we go. Huh, never mind. Perfect. That is because of this. Joke's on them, I'm broke. You know, isn't it interesting how every tyranny, really, in history requires most people to go broke? Quite intriguing, isn't it? So thus raises the question, how do you break free of that? One thing I learned in college is you can't lose something you don't have, but you may get into debt. Yeah. You know, when I was in college, I resisted wanting. I did not want to go to college. I fought hard against that idea of going to college. And finally I went because I just got harassed enough. I was like, fine, everyone wants me to go to college, I'm going. But I don't have to be happy about it. Well, interestingly enough, as when I was there, I had, well, fortunately, I had the ability to get through college without a whole lot of debt. But I noticed that a lot of people that were there didn't have an idea of what they wanted to do with their education. I took a year off between high school and college because I wanted to learn what I wanted to do, and then go to college. But I knew a lot of people that they didn't know, and they went in and they came out, and they had nothing to show for it, one way, shape, or form. But then they were left with a horrible debt. Now, there's a lot of people that will tell you, right now in our culture, they'll say, go deeper into debt. Get a debt for everything, and then you'll screw over the system. And I've been observing a lot of people trying to do that. They go into debt, they try and get more credit cards, and they have no intention of paying. And their mindset is that, oh, well, we'll just break the system this way. I've been observing things, though, because I've been seeing a lot of people these days trying to do that. And it fails to do one thing. It doesn't break their control over you. The debtor is slave to the lender. And one of the best things you can do, even though it's the most painful thing to do, is to get out of debt, even if it takes a long time. Yeah, precisely, designed to chain you to it. We need, as a culture, to start binding together again. We need to help each other escape this very bad thing of debt. We have to get rid of it. But it's not easy. It is not easy. Some people are going to fight with that for the rest of their lives. But we need to find creative ways to help each other. One of the things that we can do to help each other, try and become better at making affordable housing for folks. There are a lot of people trying to gouge, and they can't even pay off their debt because they're paying so much for rent. This place I'm in, this dump, I'm paying way too much for it, but I don't have any other option. If I had a choice And I could be able, because I'm not in debt, thankfully. My goal one day is to get a home where I can rent out parts of the home and do it for really, really low rent. The reason why is because I'm so angry at the system for trying to chain people together to the lender. Because as long as you have a debt, somebody controls you. No one controls me. And I cannot tell you how much freedom I feel doing it. But I don't make enough to be able to turn around and try and help others. And that's what's really infuriating. But the one thing I can do is hopefully one day find a way to do the housing solution. I knew a guy who tried to do this back when I first got out of college. He made it to where we had to pay $200 a month. Dang good system. You know what? It helped out tremendously. It gave people a chance to get their feet under them again, to feel like they could actually press on. And he was just a nobody. And he was trying to figure out how to lower his rent. But in doing so, he helped out many other guys. I want to be able to do that one day. Maybe that'll happen. But that is also for those of us who eventually escape this system of debt. We all need to be able to contribute in some way, shape, or form, because many, many, many people in this world have made it very difficult to try and do that. We have to be able to do whatever we can to help our fellow man, because in doing so, we'll help to break this shackle that has been plaguing our generation. It's not going to be easy to get rid of. But by the time we are old men, I want the system to be broken. So we can be able to say, yes, we helped with making sure the next generation had a fighting chance. Can't do it, at least I'm not skilled enough to do it. I got out as I kept my head down, lived well below my means, invested 10% into mutual funds. It is amazing the number of things that we can be able to do to help others. It doesn't always have to be the same thing. For me, I want to try and figure out the housing solution. I don't know if that's going to happen for some time. Good luck trying to get something in this economy. But man, there is one of the most important things that we can do, really, is just being a friend to people. It's amazing how many folks just want that. There's a hope factor that I get very frustrated with, because I don't see a whole lot of people really caring about this. In our culture, there's a lot of people that are losing hope. Hello and good night. Rest well, everyone. Same to you, Bastion. Thanks for stopping by. We all have a way that we'll be able to contribute in this life. And we don't know necessarily what that's going to be. But man, is it important that we at least be able to embrace it, whatever it is, whenever it comes our way. I'm one of them. Indeed. So there's a guy. poor fella. He had a heck of a time. He was the most popular kid at school. And this is about 15 years ago now. Most popular kid in school. Amazing how quickly popularity disappears. And he was a perfect example of that. Well, one day, he just kind of snapped. He had it, and suddenly that's when you realize that he was the most popular kid and that he was suffering horribly. And he had just lost all sort of hope for the future. Sometimes the best thing we can do is to offer a word of encouragement. Sometimes that's all we need. Because most people in our generation, and I'm saying this in a general sense, because there is a wide range to this generation right now. There are a lot of people that just feel discouraged. Sometimes you don't need finances. Sometimes you don't need even fame and fortune. Sometimes you just need somebody that cares. And there's a lot of people right now that are starting to kind of wake up to this realization. They're like, I want to be able to offer some sort of a friendship that I never got to have, and then they try and become a friend to others. There's some people that just need a mentor. Now, I've gotten to see a couple of folks that have been in need for stuff like that. There's one guy who needed all of the above. He needed a mentor, he needed a friend, he needed finances. He found somebody to give him that. All of it. He chose the wrong person. And he is living with the consequences of that decision. He is still not recovered from it. Financially, he's been ruined as a result. Someone took advantage of him. They were a scam artist. And they promised the moon. In the end, they were promising nothing but the means to make themselves rich, not anyone else. And that's when I kind of realized that we are in as much need of friendship as we are in need of financial liberation and freedom. That's one of the reasons why I hate the AI. Because it's trying to offer friendship to some people. And what we need is a person that we can be able to come alongside us. Not all of us will have the ability to help someone out financially. Not every one of us will have the ability to house somebody else and help them out in that way. Not every one of us can be a teacher. Not every one of us can be a mentor. But every last one of us has the ability to be a friend. There are so many things that we need to fix in our culture. It's kind of pick your own angle that you want to be able to attack it from. But the most important thing is to have a heart of concern and care for those that maybe were in a similar position as yourself. And then one day, hopefully you'll get the chance to help someone in that way. I personally am very angry with the financial situation of our culture. I'm not financially well off, but I am financially free of debt. That's one of the reasons why I want to try and contribute to this. I want to try and help out, but man, I'm just waiting for like the housing market to finally crash so I can be able to contribute in that way. But that's because that's something I can see. Mostly because I'm not actually a very good friend to folks. It's not like I'm a cruel fella or anything like that. It's more like I get confused with social circles. That's my big problem. So I can't be that level of friend that a lot of people need. But most of the people I know can do that. In fact, I find it really unfortunate that there's a guy that I've gotten to have many good conversations with. And unfortunately, those conversations never continued. And in part, it was because of myself. I didn't have that ability to follow through with him in any sort of proper manner. Anyway, that's why I wanted to bring that part up, because we are culturally, we're in desperate need in so many ways to kind of help us shake the shackles of control. But we also shouldn't become cold or heartless. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble at this point, so my apologies. All right. Let us see here. By the way, that's one of the problems when you do late night streams, is that sometimes your brain starts to check out on you. Golly. Speaking of friends, I did have trouble with people, and I do understand where you're coming from on this. I do try and help people I know. Then again, it's getting harder and harder to distinguish people who genuinely need your help from people who just want to take advantage of you. Ain't that the truth? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, you. There's a lot of truth there. It really is kind of like good luck trying to figure that stuff out. You know, observations can be so helpful. I've told this story before. There was a time I was working with some YouTubers. It didn't go well. A lot of problems. What is interesting, though, is that oh, darn it. I need another bone type here. What was interesting about it was that most of the people in that group were all hurting in one way, shape, or form. Now, I have kind of a blessing. I've gotten a chance to connect with a whole lot of people in a very short amount of time. And some of the people I've connected with best are people of fame in one way, shape, or form. There was a guy in this group. He was hurting. He was very depressed, and he didn't know how to break free. He got to come to an event, and the people that were there were very, very cruel to him. They mocked him. They found every opportunity to humiliate him. And then, one day, we were at an event, and he was lost. He was wandering around for about, I think he said 2 hours. And he had been trying to call everybody in his friend group with these streamers. And nobody would tell him where they were. They would tell him, and then they would be giggling. And I finally looked over and I was like, what's so funny, everybody? And then I found out they had been sending him in circles, intentionally trying to avoid him. They would smile and they would welcome him in one area, and then they would turn around and try and do that to humiliate him. Dang, that's so mean. Absolutely. And finally, I found that out, and so then I called him and said, I'm staying put. Come here, and I will not leave until you're here. What I found out is I called him 15 minutes too late. He was gone. He'd already decided he was going to quit. Well, then the person who was in charge called him up and said, don't you dare try and leave. Get back here. And so he came back. We finally grouped up, but you could see he was emotionally broken. We walked down the path, and it makes me want to hug the guy, yeah. We walked down the path, and the guy was out of it. And he was not talking to anybody, and I was too busy trying to focus on the task at hand, and I was like, well, okay, well, at least the guy's here. I didn't realize how bad things were. Well, a few minutes later, I found that he was missing. And so I call for him. I see him walking off. I shout at the guy to get back. And he pauses and just stands there. And he acted like he had been, like he was about ready to get chastised. And that was not even close to what I was trying to do there. What I was trying to do was make sure that he didn't get himself hurt. Because I was starting to get concerned about him. You never know the impact your words can have on somebody. That's one of the reasons why I've said many times in streams, forget any of those claims that sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Tongue is the most dangerous thing in the human body. It is venomous. Sure, you can have a blade. You can have a weapon of some kind. You can do damage. But you can't break someone's spirit with anything but your words. golly. There are some people that know that. And I was dealing with some of those people during that whole event. And he was a broken man after that. Well, long story short, he decided he was just going to leave. And I actually thought for a moment that was probably the last time I was going to see him. That was how concerned I was for him. Thankfully, nothing happened. And I would have paid more attention, except suddenly another person was getting the runaround. By the way, that's the reason why I don't mention this group, because I don't endorse them in any way, shape, or form. But because of that, I woke up to kind of the realization that fame can many times make you cold and heartless. And but at the same time, it can be something where you become famous or you become an actor because you are hurting. And that's your only kind of outcry for help. Why is that not wanting to work appropriately? Huh. Transform my bones? Nope, that's not it. What is going on? Okay, you know what? Let's not bother with that. Let's get rid of the this right here. Just reset it. Reset to default. But something like that. You don't need to have any sort of background to be able to help someone out. And you never know. You might be the last person that can really get through to somebody. I do wonder at times what, uh-oh, that's not it. I wonder sometimes what is going to be the, if you were to find somebody out there and interact with them, what is the chances that you were a critical part of that person's life? How many of us would just say, well, you'll never know, and just like, well, all I can do is hope? There's one time when I got very upset. I turned around and spoke in a very raised in a raised voice, which, by the way, I don't do very often, and chastise someone for their words. It spooked them and made them very startled. And it turns out that it actually got through to them. I didn't know. For years, I didn't know. And then this person walked up out of the blue, came up and said that was exactly what I needed to hear. And then they mentioned about how their life had changed. How was I had no idea. I never even thought about this person. I can't even name this person. That is how much of a disconnect it was, because I thought, I remember the generality of what it was I said, But it was fascinating that that's one of the very few times where you'll actually get to see someone later on that comes up and says thank you. That's not common. But that's just a visible sign that people actually do get impacted. And to not give up. Because you never know. You never know who you're impacting, whose life you're changing. You might not know for many years, if ever. But doesn't mean you don't play a role. There's many people I've met who I wish I could go back and thank. I can't do it. I don't even remember their names. Been in that situation before, but as you said before, sometimes the only way to win is not to play the game. Walk awkwardly away in a lot of situations. That's understandable. See, I have a bad reputation for walking towards problems. It makes people very, very upset. In fact, I kind of was joking with parents back when I was after my second year of college. That was like, I seem to have a bad reputation of just immediately finding all the problems with something. And at first my parents were like, you really shouldn't be doing that. And then a couple years later, they're like, oh, we can see why you do that sort of stuff. They didn't necessarily ever agree that is what I should necessarily be doing, but it is amazing what you learn. Sometimes it pans out well. Sometimes it becomes a big problem. In my personal opinion, avoid those of power as much as you can. Reach out and help out those that don't have the power. They're going to be a lot more appreciative of your help. The rich and the powerful only care what you can give them. The person who doesn't get any money from you is there because they're getting something far more valuable. You know something else I would love to be able to try and do one day? I would love to have the opportunity to have a common workspace for people. Like this is a far off, distant dream. It might not be as far-fetched of a dream, though, as I may think. If I had a choice, I would have I would try and get a small, well, maybe a small to medium-sized room and pay to have it added on to an existing building, a place like a coffee shop. Mostly because I would go to a coffee shop all the time to work. And I would make it into a creative space. You come down and you're there to be creative. You get a chance to work with teams of people if you so desire. Get to be able to connect and start to learn how to do what many people have forgotten, which is how to work together, how to care. When you have to work with other people, you start to learn how to overcome challenges, overcome frustrations. If you're disconnected from everybody, that makes it really hard to try and, well, if you're disconnected from folks, it makes it really hard for creativity. If you're disconnected, it's really hard to care. If you're disconnected, you start to get cynical. I'm speaking from experience. So I had this book up earlier, the Imagineering Workout. I was working with a guy a couple years ago. We were going through the book and learning creativity. One day, he decided he no longer wanted to do that. He decided he was going to move on. And here's the thing. It wasn't for the worse. It was actually for the better. See, I was the in-between. I wasn't supposed to be a permanent kind of team member in his creative adventure, because he ended up getting married and they started on a whole new journey. And so him and his wife and now their kid are getting a chance to work together. That's a good thing. What gets me concerned is the number of people that don't have that opportunity. They feel disconnected. They don't know how to break free. And then they start to not, then they struggle to even know how to get out of that cycle, and there's no avenue. That's why I would love to be able to have like a room to a public space that's open to different creative teams, whoever wants to be there. I'm pretty callous on my work culture to the point I prefer working alone. I just tell my teammates to leave the work to my desk and I'll handle it. You know, that's understandable. That is understandable. I'm kind of in a similar sort of way. We still need a place. We still need people to be able to engage and help. Because otherwise the cycle continues. We're here to be a blessing to others. Sadly, that's a challenge. Come down here to deform, disconnect that. Copy to selected. Invert. And we want these to actually have deformed. Okay, now let's grab this, and let's do automatic weights. See how this works. Ugh. By the way, I have to update this because this character is going to have speaking roles for the next one. And let's see here. And that is a problem if I can't do more complex facial positions. Let's hide that. Let's hide that. Hide that. And now, come over here, turn on shrink wrap, and see how that looks. Okay. Yeah. That's going to take some work. Oh, no. Okay, now what's going wrong with this? Why is it doing that shape? Got shrink wrap 1, shrink wrap 2. Okay, so that lines it up like this. Oh, that's part of the problem. This needs to go up to the top. That helps out a little bit. Not quite wrapping the way it's intended. Yep, that's a unique face, all right. The previous one was far better. So let's try and do a basic smile. Okay. I think that's being parented to another object. So most of these shouldn't have any sort of weight paint. Okay, let's grab this one. Does this one have deform? It does have deform. What the heck? Alright, turn that off. That one shouldn't have it either. I guess I left it on by default because I didn't need it. Oh my goodness, that all has it. Okay, so here's a new strategy. Uh-oh. Grab these. 1, 2, 3. Okay, never mind. It's not going to hide that. There we go. Hide that. Hide that. By the way, we're nearing the close for tonight. But I wanted to take a brief moment to just mention that we got a couple of projects coming out. These should be good and thought-provoking projects. But let's see here. Here we go. But anyway, there's been some pretty big updates to the Castercraft website, of which Stream Radio that you hear playing over in the corner, that is driven by this system. And it allows for some pretty neat features, including the ability to play sound effects, which, oh, come on, it decides to log me out here. Well, I can't complain to anybody because I'm the one who coded it, so I guess I need to have a good, strong talk to myself and say, what are you doing? Okay, log in. All right, here we go. I kind of ruined my momentum here. Anyway, with this, you have the ability to do all sorts of interesting and compelling sound effects. All from the comfort of your own phone. That sort of stuff is run through this website. And there's some pretty neat projects that are coming out. Pharaoh and the Smith is a story that I've been writing for a while. To me, it's compelling. I hope other people enjoy it. Also have this is what you currently have been seeing in the modeling for tonight is stuff for the Lego projects. Then there's also this one. Now this is the project that you won't see anything up here just yet other than just this page, just this banner, but there's some really neat things related to Milo's adventures that you're going to see. The story is practically written in forms of its first draft, and I hope to have it out sometime this fall. I remember that one. Indeed. This is going to be a lot of fun. This thing started out as a 4-page comic. I abandoned the comic aspect early on because the story got too darn big. It is now almost the length of a full-length novel. That's the current amount of text that is on there. So, anyway, I've been working on this for the last year and a half. We are at the tail end of that aspect. But yeah, so we got some neat stuff. Oh, here's the Silverado thing that you can be able to see. So we got like, oh, come on. I thought I set this up a little bit better. Anyway, here's where you can do like the stream activities, things like that. But there are some neat projects that are in the works. And over this year, the goal is now to start populating this website with all the different projects. So hopefully people enjoy it. It's coming out soon. Some of the stuff is already there, and the full-length stuff is... the first one's going to probably come out next week, and that is Fair and the Smith, followed by the Sasquatch animation, Lego Sasquatch animation. Then the goal is to try and wrap up Milo, as well as the next Lego short, Spooked, which is the one I'm currently working on. Speaking of which, why is it... Okay, so everything seems to have been fixed now with that. Look at that. I now have the ability to avoid problems that we were encountering earlier. Let's try the shrink wrap, and now the second shrink wrap. Hey, that's actually working. Let's try increasing the resolution of it. It's not perfect, but it's at least close enough for this evening. This is something where I can very easily refine that, and I think it has to do with that raised texture. I think I just got to surrender the raised texture. It's probably for the best. Especially for this next animation, it's not going to be necessary. I might add a few more bones in, just to add some more character to it, because this makes it easy, but it doesn't make it... It doesn't give it a lot of... easy, repeatable motions. All right, well, we're going to call it good here. So, we don't really have... Well, let me see. I think we might be able to do a raid tonight. Let me see if anybody's live. We're not going to raid on the Rumble side. There's no one over there for right now. And hey, we actually do have somebody we can raid. So we're going to go over to Bizmaster. Good quality fella. In the land down under. And he is doing pixel art, most likely. Much appreciated, folks, for coming by. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Just a reminder, no matter who you are, no matter what your circumstances, no matter if you're rich or poor, be civil to one another. And we will be seeing you all next time, whenever that is. Hopefully, let's see here. Hopefully there's some neat stuff that you all will enjoy in the future. And if not, feel free to mention stuff that you like and the things that you don't like. And that way, I know one way or the other. If you're on one of the platforms that you can like the stream or dislike it, feel free to do either. That would be much appreciated. All right, we're going to be heading out for the raid on the Twitch side, and to the rest of you out there, we'll just be ending the stream after this. See you all later. Heading over to Bizmaster in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, make sure that took. That did indeed. All right. See you, folks.